Mufti Muhammad Wasim Khan has had the chance of representing the North American students in front of many political figures, some of which including the President of Sudan, the Canadian diplomats, Saudi Arabian diplomats, and has also visited many states and lectured and worked with the youth and Muslim communities. I would like to welcome Mufti.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Peace be upon you. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ورحيمنا وعزيزنا محمد رسول الله صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وأجمعه وعلينا معهم برحمتك وجودك يا أرحم الراحمين. أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى عز وجل في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين. Respected, beloved brothers, sisters, elders, colleagues, students, this is a very unique opportunity that I've been granted to come and share some thoughts with the fellow students of UIC, and especially on the topic of theology. As we know, in this day and age that we live in, most youngsters or most youth, or most people for that matter, we live in such a materialistic society. We live in such a society that revolves around materialistic things, where we want to have the best cell phone, the best car, we want to have the best house, we want to wear the best clothes. And very rarely does our mind go towards theology. Very rarely does our mind go towards God. And just upon this, just so that the rest of the week we can benefit from it and we can take out time from our busy schedules, because I'm pretty sure you all have something to do. I mean, I was hearing that some of you guys got exams and quizzes, and I mean, throughout the whole studying and taking out time and still coming here, that shows a lot about your interest. So just on that, one small little anecdote comes to mind. In the Muslim tradition, for those who are not familiar, there are different levels of heaven. So there's 7 heavens, like 7 categories, 7 chapters, and in those categories of heaven, you have higher levels. So as the heaven increases in its level to the 7th heaven, that's the highest level of heaven, and that's the one that has like the best amount of, as you can say, luxury. So there were 3 people, and like I said, this was in the Muslim tradition, where there's 7 heavens, and as the heaven escalates, there's more luxury and there's more comfort in it. So 3 people are going on a journey, and as any road trip goes, or as any trip goes, you have your food, you have your snacks, and after a while, the snacks all deplete and all the food finishes. So they're left with one Oreo amongst the 3 of them. And the first one says, well, I think I should eat the Oreos because I'm the eldest. The second one says, well, I'm the youngest, I should eat the Oreo. The third one says, well, I'm the driver, I think I should eat the Oreo. And they get into an altercation on who should have the final Oreo. Now everyone's hungry. One of them says, look man, a hungry man's an angry man. None of us can think straight right now. Let's take a couple of hours of sleep. Let's sleep on it. Let's get refreshed a little bit. And then we can decide on who will get the cookie. So one of them said, look, since we're all going to sleep, let's make a deal. Whoever has the best dream, he gets the cookie. Alright, sounds pretty fair. Whoever has the best dream gets the best cookie. Alright, sounds good. Everybody, they put the cookie in a box, close the box, everybody knocks out. A couple hours later, first guy gets up, reaches for the cookie. The others said, what are you doing? He says, well, I had an amazing dream, and I'm pretty sure you can't top it. And I should get the cookie right away. Well, they said, look, the deal is that you have to say what you never heard the rest of our dreams. You got to say what your dream is. He says, well, I went to sleep, and 4 angels came to me, and they said, let's go. I said, where? They said, we're taking you to heaven. I said, oh, that's awesome. They took me, and I went to heaven, and I saw this huge house, and over there were people that were working, and they had food over there, and there was a river flowing of milk and water and honey, and it was an amazing time. So I had the best dream, I should get the cookie. The second one says, wait. Hear my story. Hear my dream. He says, all right, what's your dream? He says, well, in my dream, 8 angels came to me. And they picked me up and they said, let's go. I said, where? They said, we're taking you to heaven. I said, which heaven? They said, the final one, the highest one. So they started taking me up, and I saw you on the first heaven, but I kept on going higher and higher and higher, and I ended up on the top heaven. And over there I saw rivers of wine and soda and diet soda, and I saw cream soda, and every single thing you can think of, I had it 10 times as much. And it was the highest heaven. So therefore I should get the cookie, pass the cookie. Third one says, look, since we're talking about, everybody gets a chance to speak, right? I can't top your dream. Granted, you had the best dream. You went to the best heaven, granted. I can't top your dream, but I should at least be able to say what my dream was. I said, fair enough. Say your dream. He said, well, I wasn't that blessed to have a dream like you guys, is where you guys saw 4 or 8 angels. My dream only had 1 angel. I said, okay. So the angel came to me and he told me that, well, you know what, I'm an angel and I'm telling you, eat the cookie. And I said to him, no, I can't. I have a deal with my friends. And they said, eat the cookie. And I said, I can't. I have an honest deal, and we have to see this dream, and it's a whole long story, and it's really technical. They said, you're going to eat the cookie, or we're going to beat you up. And I said, no, I can't eat the cookie. And they started beating me up until they forced the cookie down my throat. And I had to eat the cookie. So the other 2 said, well, why didn't you yell to us and call us for help? He said, man, I was yelling and trying to call you for help. But the first one was on the first heaven, the second one was on the 7th heaven, they couldn't hear me. So, at the end of the day, we have certain opportunities, certain chances to grasp it and to benefit from it. And if we don't take benefit from them, someone else is going to walk past and take benefit from those opportunities. And it is up to every one of us to seize the moment of benefit and to stop there and to take benefit from that opportunity. Now going on, this was just to lighten the mood, as I'm very close to you in age as well, so this is not really a lecture, this is very informal. When I was given the topic of speaking on the 3 Abrahamic faiths, and I looked through the Bible, and I looked through a little bit of the Old Testament, the New Testament, and I just recently come back a month from the Holy Land, as those, I see some faces that, might adhere to a different faith from the Christians or the Jewish faith. As we know, the old city, Jerusalem, is a very unique area. It's the home for 3 of the major faiths, for the Abrahamic faith, for the Jewish faith, for the Christian faith, and for the Muslims. And it was really beautiful going inside there and seeing every single person of his own sect following his own religion in complete peaceful coexistence. And then at times, and then history started coming to my mind back in the 11 and 1200s when Salahuddin Ayyubi came and conquered, or when before him in the 600s when Umar bin al-Khattab came and conquered Jerusalem, and how there was peaceful coexistence. And then I remember when we were walking in Jerusalem, one person actually stopped us, and they were of the Jewish faith. So they asked me, they said that, while you're in America, they said, do you have the same tensions we have over here? Do you have the same killing and the fighting and the same tension that we have over here? And I said, no, in America we're safe from this. As in America, we each have self-respect for one another, we each understand one another, and we each have value for one another. Is because understanding that there are differences of opinions, and understanding there are different views, and being able to peacefully coexist, this requires a level of maturity. This requires a level of open-mindedness. And if you look, the 3 faiths are very intertwined. And it all begins, let's start from Adam. I'm going to start from Adam and then go down a couple of prophets and a couple of incidents. In the Jewish and Christian faith, the Bible mentions that God created Adam, He created Eve. Eve was the one that told him that we should eat from the forbidden fruit. So therefore, it was her that convinced him, and he made the mistake, and he listened to her. That's why they say, as a joke, they say that don't laugh at. They say don't listen to your wives too much, but they also say don't laugh at your wife's choices. Someone said, why? They said because you were one of them. So never laugh at your wife's choices. So going back, so Adam and Eve, God created them, and Eve convinced him to eat from the forbidden fruit. When he ate from the forbidden fruit, God cast him out of paradise, and God told him, according to the Christian tradition, that God said to him that, well, from now on, because you committed the original sin, your children will be born in sin. And then, according to Christian tradition, Christ came down and he was crucified, and that was the atonement for anyone who adheres to Christ or believes in Christ. That was the atonement for the original sin. The Muslim tradition is a bit different from this. The Muslim tradition captures the story very closely as the way it was mentioned in the Bible, where we say that yes, Adam was created. Yes, Adam did eat from the forbidden fruit. Yes, Adam was cast out of paradise. But that was Adam's mistake. That wasn't my mistake. So when I was born, I wasn't born in sin. I wasn't. There was an Arabic poem comes to mind. One Arabic poet, and I will just say it very, very quickly, based on the subject of, since I touched on the topic of being born in original sin. One of the Arabic poets, because in the Muslim faith and tradition, you are not born in original sin, but rather you are born clear and clean. And that's why one of the poets says that God brought you into this earth, and your mother gave birth to you to this earth, and you were clean from all sins. But when you entered the grave again, you entered full of committing crimes and committing wrong actions and committing sins, and so on and so forth. In the Muslim tradition, God has a very simple. It doesn't make a difference who your father is or who your lineage is. It doesn't make a difference where you come from. You cannot benefit from that lineage, nor can you get harm from that lineage. If your father was an evil man, you do not inherit the evil qualities. If your father was a good man, you don't automatically become good because your father was good. When Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he was one of the greatest prophets that as Muslims claim. One of his daughters passed away, and in the tradition it goes that when she was passed away, because she was the daughter, and she was the most beloved daughter of Prophet Muhammad, she was his favorite. So when she passed away, they buried her in the grave, and because there were mystics, they said that at that moment, they said that they spoke, because they were mystics, they said that, do you know who entered your grave? They said, do you know who entered the grave? This is the daughter of the final messenger, the last messenger, Prophet Muhammad. When they put her in the grave, someone at that moment replied, and they said that it doesn't matter who enters the grave, it matters what they came with. So whether you are Prophet Muhammad's children, or you're his grandchildren or great-grandchildren, regardless of that matter, everyone has to answer for their own actions. And this is an all equality, as we see, for example, that you come up to me and you were to make a mistake. Now I cannot take the punishment out on somebody else. At the same time, someone made the mistake. Let's say Jake made a mistake. Jake came and broke my glasses, or Jake came and hit me. Now, if I was to take retribution, Carl can't come and tell me that, well, listen, Jake's the one that hit you, but you know what? You can hit me back and I'll take it back. I said, no, I don't want your face, I want Jake's face. Because he's the one that hit me. I want to hit him back. You understand? So same thing in the Islamic faith. If you committed the sin, you need to ask for forgiveness. You need to go and apologize. If you made a mistake against God, you can apologize straight to God. But if you were to hurt and wrong one person, I was in outside the Wailing Wall, and I met a very young and vibrant, very intellectual Christian, a German young chap. He came from Germany, and he was propagating he was preaching Christianity. I took the moment, I seized the moment. I said, you know what? Let me exchange some words with him. You know, maybe I can benefit from him. And over there at that moment, he had said that he was proclaiming to me on how his mission was to go and take the extent of Christianity and go and explain to other people, so on and so forth. At that moment, I said to him that your ideology of crucifixion in reality is entailing for me to understand that someone else makes the mistake, someone else is paying the price for it. But in Islam, like I said, there are some similarities, but there are differences. In Islam, we believe in Christ. and we have respect, and we have the utmost amount of respect for Christ. And I'll get to Christ later on, afterwards. So since I mentioned about Adam and our concept of the original sin going down, and I want to take a pit stop on a certain prophet, and that's the prophet known to us as Lut, alayhi salam, peace be upon him, known in the Bible as Lot, Prophet Lot. And as we all know, we're familiar with the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. They were stoned, they were destroyed, carrying on. Now, the Bible mentions the story with a very different term. It says that Lot had 2 daughters, and they realized that because Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed, that the lineage must continue. But the father would not consummate with them and would not have sexual relationships with them. So they said, let's make our father drunk. We make our father drunk, he won't know what's going on, and we consummate with him, and the children, the lineage, will continue thus. From the intermingling of a father and a daughter. Whereas the Islamic tradition is very different. We have highlighted there's God. We have respect, value, there's one God, and we respect him, and we have love for him, and we appreciate him. But after God sent some vicegerents. He sent some people who propagated his messages, and they were known as the prophets. Now, the Christian, the Jewish, and the Muslims view the prophets very differently. The Christians and Jews, they look at them a lot. They are humans. We all agree they're humans. But they say that just the same way you and I have temptations, and you and I fall into our temptations, and we make sin left and right, and we make mistakes. No one can get up and say that, well, I'm sinless. Every single person makes his mistakes. At the same time, in these prophets that God had chosen, they all made mistakes and sins just like you and I. Whereas the Muslim tradition captures it very differently. It says that these were God's men. God bestowed a certain protection on them. Because if I get up here and I tell you that, well, you should not be racist, and racism is bad, and racism is evil, and the moment I step out, I say some racist remarks to someone else, you'll turn around and tell me that, well, you're preaching something and you're doing something else. Why should I listen to you? How can I be a community leader? If someone is telling you, preaching you something else and doing something else, they're not going to listen to them. So God had to perfect the character and the life of his messengers. Why? It's because nations would look upon those messengers. Nations would seek inspiration from those messengers. If those messengers were tainted, if those messengers were faulty, if those messengers were dishonest, like for example, we take the story of Solomon. And the Muslims, the tradition, they consider him a very great prophet. They say that, you know what, he ruled an extensive part of the earth as well, and he was a great king. No doubt, he was a great king, but nevertheless, he was a wise man. And since we touched the topic, I'll mention one story to show his wisdom. His father, King David, was also a very wise man and a very intelligent man, but they say that the father is the father, but the son is 2 steps ahead. So one time when in Solomon's childhood, a woman came and she told King David, she said that King David was known as being very wise and very good in his judgments. She comes to him and she says that, well, you know what, I had a child, and this woman had a child, and she was older, I'm younger, and a wolf came, and a wolf devoured her child. She grabbed my child and she claims it's my child. She claims it's her child, but it's really not her child, it's my child, and she took this child from me. So King David looks at them and says, well, you know what, you're still young. The elderly one might be saying the truth because she's a lot more older, a lot more mature, you're still young. He ruled it in that sense, and he said, as any human being can make errors in judgment, he made an error in judgment, and he said that, well, you know what, the baby should belong to the older woman of the two. As they were walking out, Solomon was a kid. He was in his youth. He was small. As they were walking out, he stops her and he says, what happened? And she says, well, you know what, your father made a decision, and you know what, I don't really agree with it, and so on and so forth. He says, well, say the story again to me, maybe I can help. She said, well, the thing was that I had a child, and so on and so forth. She says the whole story again. He says, I got a solution. He says, what? He says, I'm the prince. You're going to follow me? He says, we're going to follow you. So you're going to listen to me? I'm going to listen to you. Your decree is the decree? My decree is the decree. We agree with you. All right. I'm going to make a decision. Give the baby to me, and I'll tell you whose baby it is. I said, okay, fair enough. Gave the baby to him. He said, bring me a knife. I said, what are you going to do with the knife? He said, 2 people, they want 1 kid. It's like a pizza. Split it in half. Half you take, half you take. Split the baby in half you take, half you take. The elderly woman didn't really care, because jealousy is something that you don't care whether you get the benefit or the bounty that someone else has. In jealousy, you don't care if you get that bounty or not. You just want that bounty removed from that person. If you see someone who has a good job or good career, and you don't like them, you don't care if you have this. You don't want the same career. Sometimes you don't even want the same life as them. But you cannot stand the fact that they're also smiling, they're happy. So she didn't care, because it wasn't her child. But the younger lady, it was her real child. It was her biological child. Right away she said, you know what, I'm lying. This child is not mine. Give the child to the mother. Give the child to the elderly woman. And at that moment, Solomon understood that this only a real mother could have love for the child, that she denounced the child, and he ruled in the favor of the younger lady. Going on, so we respect King Solomon as a great king. We respect him as a great prophet to propagate the message. He went from the east to the west to propagate the name of God and to convert people to the religion. But in the Christian faith, they look at Solomon very differently. And as we know of the incident of when King Solomon, they have incidents of him where he would, for example, go and kill off another person just to get married to him. The revelation comes about King David, more famously, that King David killed one of his leaders and generals because he had a very beautiful wife. He killed his wife. King David had 99 wives, and then he killed King Solomon's father. He killed his general in war. He sent him to such a war where he knew the general would not come back, and then he married off his girl. But in the Muslim tradition, if man that God had appointed to lead as an example for us had such character and had such a style of living life, and he was the one that God appointed to lead us, and if he's making mistakes and he's making sins, then you and I, there's no way in the world that you and I can live a righteous life, is because the one that God appointed, the all-knowing God, the all-powerful God, the all-wise God, the one he appointed, if he cannot be good, how can you and I be good? So the very fundamental difference in Islamic ideology of the prophets and in the Christian and Judaic faith is that according to the Muslims, the prophets are free from sin. Yes, mistakes they make. Moses made mistakes. Prophet Muhammad made mistakes. Abraham made mistakes. Mistakes is prone to human. Human is prone to error. That any person, they'll make a mistake. But as far as sin is concerned, as far as, for example, lying or fornication or theft or murder or these sort of things, these things prophets cannot do. Why? Is because that is a sin. And they came to the earth to tell people not to do these actions. But if they're the exact same ones doing those actions, then you know that there's something definitely wrong in God's decision. Now going more, God mentions in the Bible in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 18, over there, God mentions that about Moses. He says that he's going to send another prophet unto the children, and it will be like Moses. I'm paraphrasing. They said that it will be like Moses. Now, a lot of Bible historians and a lot of research and scholars, they say that the prophet that was coming subsequently after Moses was Jesus. And he was the prophesied one. But if we were to measure the lives of Moses and we were to measure the life of Jesus, we will see that they were not alike. And if we were to measure the life of Prophet Muhammad and Moses, you will notice that the lives are more similar. For example, Prophet Moses was exiled from his nation. He was kicked out from his nation. Prophet Muhammad was also exiled from his nation. He went on somewhere else, lived, created a community, lived and settled somewhere else. He migrated. He was a migrating prophet. Prophet Moses was a migrating prophet. Jesus was exiled, or according to the Christian belief, crucified. But then again, Muslims do not believe he was crucified, but that's an argument for another time. The fact is that Jesus was not exiled from his area. He lived in the same area, and according to Christian popular belief, he was crucified in the same area and he was raised. Whereas Moses was migrated and Prophet Muhammad, they migrated at the same time. First similarity. Similarity number two. Moses waged wars. He fought battles. he fought against the other army. He fought against the opposition. He had enemies in the sense that they had a proper military warfare. The same is found in Prophet Muhammad's life. Whether they were defensive wars or they were offensive wars, there were wars nonetheless. Whether they were defensive or offensive, there were wars nonetheless. But in the life of Jesus, there's not a single war. In the life of Jesus, there was not a single war. Prophet Moses came with a book that changed all the rulings from the past. The Ten Commandments and the Torah that came, they had newer rules relative to those of the past. Whereas the Bible was just that, as we can say, you have, I'm not so tech savvy, but I remember back in the day when you had AOL, American Online, every couple of weeks you get a mail. They'll say, well, here's your AOL 5.0, or AOL 5.2, or AOL 5.7, the little upgrades that you have. I'm guessing on phones and iOS and things you have upgrades as well. I'm a simple person. Whatever's on my phone, I keep it on my phone. I don't know how to upgrade, I don't know how to downgrade. So, going back, the Bible was a version 2.0 of the Old Testament. That's why the Old Testament and the New Testament are printed together. Why? It's because the Bible is an upgrade to the Old Testament. But the Quran was something completely new, completely different, in the sense that it had information from the Bible, but it had information in a different light. Because God mentions in the Bible that He says He's going to send another prophet. He's going to send a prophet in the Old Testament, He says, who would go and speak of my word. Speak of my word. And he will propagate my message. And he will correct the information that I have said. So now in this was sought in Prophet Muhammad's life. Whereas, like I said, Jesus took the same message and he propagated it in a new light. Going on, because time is running out and there was a couple of things that I wanted to touch on. I want to talk on divinity for a quick moment. And the ideology in the different faiths. In the Judaic tradition, God is looked as a very ruthless figure in the sense that he punishes and he's at times he's not very generous as well. In the Judaic tradition, it does come about that God was not very generous. That's why the Quran clears this conception up and says that God is of such generosity that God is in the Judaic tradition. I mean, we have our faiths, we have our opinions. In there, the paradise has a limited amount of occupancy. You have to be born, and there's a certain tradition, there's a certain mode of how you enter paradise, and it's a limited amount of occupants. Whereas in the Muslim tradition, in the words of Prophet Muhammad, very beautifully and very eloquently, he says, لو أن أولكم وآخركم وإنسكم وجنكم قاموا على صعيد. This is a very long tradition, I'm making concise. قاموا على صعيد واحد فسألوني فأعطيت كل إنسان مسألته ما نقص ذلك مما عندي إلا كما ينقص المخيط إذا أدخل البحر. He says, Prophet Muhammad says, لو أن أولكم وآخركم, from the first of you, from Adam and Eve to the last of you, from the humans and the insects and every creation, قاموا على صعيد واحد, everyone came to one platform and stood on one area, and everyone joined, all of us, you guys, your friends, family, everyone. فَسَأَلُونِي, and they were to ask God of their desires. One person, two, three, as far as you can think, you're granted. فَأَعْطَيْتُ كُلَّ إِنسَانٍ مَسْأَلَتَهُ, and I grant every single person whatever he desires. He wants a Ferrari, he got it. He wants a Bentley, he got it. He wants 500 Ferraris, he got it. And God gives every one of us whatever we can desire. As far as our imaginations can go, God grants it to us. The Prophet Muhammad says, مَا نَقَصَ ذَلِكَ إِلَّا مِمَّا كَمَا يَنْقُصُ الْمِخْيَةُ إِذَا أُدْخِلَ الْبَحْرِ, that from the treasures of God, nothing will diminish. Even if you were to take a needle, and you were to dip it in the four oceans and the seven seas, you were to dip this needle in the four oceans and the seven seas, when you pull the needle out, how much water comes out? Almost nothing comes out. Even less than this diminishes from the wealth of God. In the Muslim tradition, God is granting that He gives to whomever. He gives to the obedient, He gives to the disobedient. He gives to those who He loves, He gives to those who He doesn't love. He gives to those who profess His faith, He gives to those who doesn't profess His faith. Because generosity A generous person, a person in a lot of us, we say, when you're college students, you go, especially when you live in your dormitories or you live in your apartments, everybody eats by themselves. I lived in a dormitory for many years when I was studying in South Africa, so I know, especially when you have food, it's like you have gold. You go to the corner and somewhere you find, that nobody else is going to smell it, and especially if it's fresh, you got to go a little further, maybe your car or something, and you eat it quietly without anyone knowing. And now let's say one of the guys, he'll say, he's a really generous person, he's really nice, and he always shares with his roommates, right? You'll say, he's a nice guy. But rarely will you find someone who will say that this guy also shares with his enemies. He also brings foods to those that he doesn't like. He also assists those who he, and that's real generosity. That whether you like the person or not, no matter what, you're still giving. And that's God. That regardless of the fact, the materialistic values that we have in our lives are not measured through the obedience of our God. People object and they say, well, if God is there and God is all-powerful, this and that, why is there suffering? Or why is there this? Because our values are not measured through materialistic gains. God does not award us or reward us. The more we listen to Him and obey Him, all right, now you can have an iPhone 5S. No, you weren't good enough this year. It's not Santa Claus. If you were naughty that year, your materialistic benefits don't start diminishing. And another thought, as far as in Christian faith goes, is of God being three: the Holy Spirit, Jesus, and God Himself. Together, the three of them together make up God. It's three is one, one is three. Whereas in the Muslim tradition, God is completely one. He has no partner. He can do anything He wills unquestionably, unobjectionably. No one can object to Him because He's all powerful, all strong. In the Christian faith, I was reading in the Bible, or I was reading in one magazine actually once, when Jesus, according to Christian popular faith, when He was crucified, at that moment, He said to God, He said that, do you forsake me? At that moment. And then there's long theological discussions on what does it mean by Jesus saying, God, have you forsaken me, when He was being crucified. There's long theological and Christian discussions. I'm not going to delve into it. But the point is, just to take it for its face value, just to take those words for its literal value. Now, if Jesus is God at the same time and God is God, and He was to say, why have you forsaken me? Then He's objecting to God. Whereas in the Muslim tradition, you cannot, even Prophet Muhammad cannot object to God. And if there was anyone better than Prophet Muhammad, even he cannot object to God. Whether you're the angel Gabriel or you're anyone else, if God says something, that's God's word. Because God is all powerful. God is all strong. God is all wise. Going on, as far as since we touched the topic of Jesus, in the Muslim tradition, Jesus is viewed with a lot of respect. And I'll end off with two things I'll say. Jesus is viewed with a lot of respect, to the point that His mother is also revered. She's known as in the Holy Quran. I'm pretty sure everybody watches the news and looks at their phones and stuff. You notice sometimes the women cover themselves. Islam is very much on modesty. They're very emphatic on modesty. And in the Holy Quran, you won't find any woman's name in there, in the entire Quran. But one woman. You'll find the name of Virgin Mary in the Quran. No other woman's name is found in the Quran. Check it from the beginning to the end. There's a couple of chaps over here that have even memorized the entire book. They can correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't memorized it, but they can correct me if I'm wrong. Not anywhere in the Quran from the beginning till the end is a woman's name mentioned. But the only woman, not even Prophet Muhammad's mom, not his wives, not his daughters, none of them are mentioned. But the Virgin Mary is the only woman. And not only is she mentioned in the Quran, she has a whole chapter named after her. She has a whole chapter of the Quran named after her. And the reason for this was, and the wisdom behind this was that the Virgin Mary, according to the Islamic tradition, was such a chaste woman. And she had such chastity in her that God wanted to highlight the level of her chastity in the Quran, to mention that not a woman existed on the surface of this earth as chaste as this woman. And not a woman exists on this planet as pure as this woman. And the tradition goes that the Holy Spirit, or the angel of Gabriel, he came and he blew into her womb and she had a child. And then to go on and finish off, if I love someone, right, and I appreciate them and I look out for them, I'm going to try my best that no harm comes towards them. Right? No harm. The story comes to mind. And I will take a couple extra minutes. Forgive me for it. When one of Prophet Muhammad's disciples, his name was Khubayb, and he became the first person in the history of the Arabian Peninsula to be crucified. He became the first person in the history of the Arabian Peninsula to ever be crucified. He was crucified for following Prophet Muhammad. They hung him on a cross. They were about to kill him. When he was seared onto the cross, they asked him a certain question, and history records this. There were thousands of people in that gathering. He was asked that, do you not wish that right now you would be sitting with your family members and Muhammad would be in your place taking the cross? Do you not wish you'd be enjoying life with your family and Muhammad takes the cross in your place? So, because they had love. I mean, the same way Jesus' disciples had love for Jesus, Muhammad's disciples had love for Muhammad. And it was a love that is very difficult for you and I to really comprehend. And he replied very beautifully. He said that, I would rather be here than Muhammad be pricked with the thorn. I'd rather be here than Muhammad be pricked with the thorn. Now, if you love someone, you'll protect him through all angles and all spheres, and as far as you can go, you'll protect him. And that's what we say, that God loved Jesus so much. And he loved Jesus so much. And he had such a spot and respect and valor and honor for Jesus, that when the rebels came to crucify Jesus, God said that, you know what? There were two prophets before you. Or two prophets, Zechariah and John the Baptist. Right? His son, John the Baptist, and Zechariah. Now, we all know how they both were slaughtered. One went into the tree, he was slaughtered. The second's head was brought when he said that the king could not marry his niece. So we all know the story. There were two prophets at the same era. One was an uncle, one was a cousin. Zechariah was the cousin of Jesus. And Zechariah was the uncle of Jesus. And John the Baptist was his cousin. The cousin and the uncle, God says, I'll test them with their lives. But Jesus, I have such love and such honor for him that I'm going to raise him to me. Without a single strand of his hair being affected. I'm going to raise him to me. And when the time is right, I'm going to send him back to the earth. Because that's the love and the respect and the honor I have for Jesus. And the last thing, I was on the internet, and it was something that I was looking up, and I'll finish off with this. It was something actually very interesting that I had come across in the Song of Solomon, in chapter 5, verse 16. It's very interesting. And I'll end off with this because I know that I'm actually a teacher. I teach, so I give a lot of homeworks. I'm one of those teachers that if I was here, you probably wouldn't like me. I give a lot of homework, and I give a lot of work and research. So I'm going to leave you off with a couple of words. And you're more than welcome to Google it up. You're more than welcome to check it online. And if you have any questions or anything at all, you're more than welcome to bring it up. Is because this is the beauty of America, that we can sit together, we can speak on controversial topics, and we can speak on different opinions with love and respect with each other at the end of the day. And I was listening to one of the debates, and it was beautiful because the debater, I mean, most of you must be familiar with him, Ahmadida. He debated Jimmy Swaggart. It was a very famous debate. So afterwards, in one of the clips, he said something very beautiful, and I really respected that. Is because that's how we should be as adults, and we should be mature like this. He says that Jimmy Swaggart and his wife, even though they were in opposition in a debate, he said they were one of the most beautiful people I've met. He said, if charm could convert, I would have become a Christian. He said, if charm could convert, I would have become a Christian. And that was even after having disagreements and debating with one another, still having love and respect. I salute to that. So over there he mentions that incident, and again, I will, just for the sake of, repeating it, he says that, as we all know, the Bible's original language that it was revealed in was Aramaic. It wasn't revealed in Hebrew or Greek, it was revealed in Aramaic, the language of Jesus. He spoke Aramaic, Ibrani. And the original Bible is not preserved, as we know it, because the translation was preserved. The Greek translation or the Hebrew translation is preserved. So now over there, he says that in the Song of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 16, he says, if you look at it very closely, you will actually find the name of Prophet Muhammad in the Old Testament. He says, how do you find the name of Prophet Muhammad in the Old Testament? So he replicates the words, and again, I never studied Hebrew, so I rather read it off. He says, Hiku mametikam wekulu Muhammadim Zahuda wa Zahari Bena Jerusalem. So over there, as you were hearing, the word Muhammadim comes. So now someone can object and say that, well, Muhammad doesn't come, Muhammadin comes. Now if you were to open the first verse of the Bible in Genesis, again, like I said, Mr. Ahmadi really beautifully explains and expounds upon it. He says that in the Jewish language, Elah or Elo means God. But out of respect, instead of saying God, you use the plural form. And that M at the end, the AM at the end, Elohim, Elahim, is to show respect for God. So Muhammadin, at the end of the day, the AM at the end is to show respect. Popular translation of the Bible will say that they will say his mouth. The translation of that line would say, his mouth is most sweet. He is altogether lovely. This is my beloved, and this is my friend, O daughters of Jerusalem. So over there, because Muhammad literally means someone who is praised, someone who is loved, the name of his name was translated. But if you were not to translate it and fixate the name of Muhammad in there, it would say his mouth is most sweet. He is Muhammad. This is my beloved and this is my friend, O daughters of Jerusalem. Why? Is because Isaac and the family, they were cousins of Ishmael, and Muhammad was from the lineage of Ishmael. Again, my time is finished, but please go online, search this up, look through it, and it's an interesting topic. And again, like I'm saying, I'm not saying this is clear proof in the Bible. Again, the Aramaic version is not available. If the Aramaic version was available, then we could argue on it on a more intellectual and a more scholarly level. But this is just something that I came across and I wanted to share with you. Again, I thank you all for inviting me and giving me the chance and opportunity to share some thoughts with you. And I look forward to seeing you again. And please remember me in your prayers. And do research on different on religion and objection. Anytime you have a question, never be a blind follower. Go ask somebody. Go and try to reach the bottom of it. It's because no one is required to follow blindly. If you have objection and questions, don't be scared. Think outside the box and go ahead and ask your questions. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Jazakallah for that beautiful talk. At this moment, we don't have time for a lot of questions, but if anyone has a quick question, please be. No questions?
Anybody got questions?
If you guys are free tomorrow from 12 to 1 p.m., there is the next talk. It will be held in the same room. This is SEE 605, and that is titled, Will the Real Sharia Law Please Stand Up? And we encourage everyone to come, and Jazakallah for coming tonight.
So one last announcement. The food is in the back, so you guys can go ahead in the back and enjoy some pizza. Assalamu alaikum.